everybody, and welcome back to the third and sadly the final day of our Fair Festival 2021. My name is Emily Johnston. I'm really excited to be back with you today to explore this really important topic together with the Go Fair community joining from all across the world. Our session this morning is called Global Open Fair Changes Happen, and it's time to say past forward. This plenary is going to be a vivid session with contributions from all of our current and emerging officers to pave the way for future Go Fair community activities and to build on the achievements of the past 3 years, which, as we've heard over the last 2 days, have been a lot. We will have representatives from Austria, from Brazil, from China, from Denmark, from France, Germany, the Netherlands, and the US. And they will share about their ongoing activities and together paint a picture of the future support for the international Go Fair community. So today is really going to be a fair road trip all across the world. Just to give you a heads up of the agenda, we're going to start by meeting the chair of the Go Fair Executive Board, Ronald Cornet. Then we will have joint statements from all of the officers presented by Baron Mons and Melissa Cragen. And after that, we will have presentations from all of the officers, followed by a Q&A with the audience, with you. And so just a couple of things for housekeeping, in case especially if you're joining us for the first time. We always ask people to keep their microphone off if you're not talking, and to use the chat for connecting with your peers. And you also have a Q&A on the right side of your screen where you can enter questions that we'll come back to later on. If there's a question that you see that you really like, you can vote it up and we will hopefully get to ask our speakers later on. Please keep any phone or apps on silent mode so that you can, as much as possible, stay fair, stay present, and of course, tweet Fair Festival 2021. We will also record the session and you will have it available after the festival. Now, it's my huge pleasure to welcome to the stage Ronald Cornet, who is the chair of the Go Fair Executive Board. And I would love to invite him to share from his perspective and the community perspective. So Ronald, how are you doing this morning?
Hi, Emily. So great to be here, and thanks for the invitation to join in this session. I think it will be exciting to see what's happening all around the world, and great to be here.
Great to have you here. So are you calling from Amsterdam, as your name would suggest?
Yes, I'm actually back at work. They're doing cable work here, so I hope they don't rip out the cables, but I'm confident it will work. So
okay.
Yeah.
Let's see, so far so good. Great, wonderful to have you here. So I'm curious, Ronald, because you come from the field of medical informatics, right? And so over the pandemic, you must have had a lot of burning use cases in your field of work. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I think the whole pandemic is like the poster child of why we need fair data and fair infrastructures in the first place. I mean, there have been many for maybe 1 or 2 decades, but I think often hard to explain to people why we would need it. And I think the pandemic showed how information really is key to providing treatment and to closing the research treatment gap. And I think, well, everything from getting a clear view on the number of COVID cases, which we've been struggling with, the population, different subpopulations, and the extent to which they were hit by the pandemic, the treatment modalities, long COVID, ICU admissions, you name it. All of that requires, well, data that can be shared and can quickly be analyzed. And I think we're largely still, well, collecting piecewise evidence and trying to bring that together. And I think many of the processes that I think we have rolled out at high speed during the pandemic could have been done, well, much further or faster if fair infrastructures had been in place.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for these examples. It really makes it very hands-on and shows just how important this topic is and the work is, but also how much work there still is to go. Yeah. So the initiative's been in place already for the last 3 years, and I would love to hear from a community perspective. There clearly is still a need for the Go Fair initiative. So where do you see the real benefit of Go Fair for the community?
Yeah, so it's like I say, and well, I have of course a biased view in the area of healthcare, and so in other domains, but well, I guess there will be other challenges, but there will be many similar challenges. Yeah, I think that where we need to go is to continue to collaborate on establishing infrastructures that enable us to really much more quickly share the data that we collect, either through specific research, but I think, and that goes for healthcare, increasingly being able to make use of real world evidence. And I think that's really an area where we need to collaborate around the globe to agree on the standards to apply, on the way to integrate those data, to well, in the case of healthcare, also, of course, to deal with privacy aspects. So the federated approach of being able to have your algorithms being sent to the data, doing federated analysis and learning. I think all of that are things that we are now building up. But well, like I say, that do need significant efforts over the year. And that's only with, as I say, my limited perspective from the healthcare domain. But I think in other domains, there are probably many similar challenges that need to be faced.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've heard parts of this over the last days in our other discussions. And I think it's interesting to I mean, there's just so much potential when you consider how many borders there actually cross between different domains, between different countries. Lot to be done, but also a lot of potential. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's interesting you picked up on this topic of the infrastructure and overall looking at the program, we have had a lot of technical topics. Do you think that generally this technical implementation has been tackled more than the cultural and educational side?
Yeah, I can see that that's currently the focus, and I think that makes sense. Well, maybe to give an example, well, I've been in various efforts which, well, it could be well coined faire avant la lettre. So and mainly focusing on interoperability. And well, when you start, and we did that like 25 years ago, and you try to establish interoperability, you try to create a culture, you try to indeed involve people and train people on important aspects. And well, if that works, then it's just the technology that needs to get in place, and then suddenly you look back and you see, well, talking about fast forward, it's 20 years ago. So technology, and I think, well, technology has evolved tremendously, luckily, over the last 20 years, but it can really be a showstopper. So we need to get the technology in place to make sure that we can indeed involve people and train people and get the culture change. Otherwise, we may end up, and we wouldn't want that, in a fair winter. We know AI, it has been tremendously promising with, well, hypes and winters over the last 50 years or so. And I think to make sure that FAIR keeps flying the way it is flying, it is crucial to deal with technology. But at the same time, I think not to forget that it's not just technology. I mean, if FAIR were just technology, or if people address FAIR as being just technology, I think it will fail. So while working hard collaboratively on all the technological aspects, we need to be aware that what people really need to be involved in understanding the importance and involved in understanding the way to move forward and to increasingly become fair. So I think really the culture and the learning and the building goes together.
Absolutely, that's very much interlinked, right? And yesterday we also asked our audience what they see as some of the key challenges, but also the key things needed to really implement FAIR. And these aspects of cultural change and training showed up on both. They're both challenging and they're really needed. So of course, yeah, it's super crucial. But I want to pick up now because it's really nice that you put it in context. So this initiative's been running for the past 3 years, but many of you in our audience and on our panels have been working on this for decades already in these topics. And as you know, you already mentioned that the description of this plenary is past forward. So I'm curious what this means to you and for the Go Fair community, and what kind of support you see that the community needs to be able to implement the fair as a whole.
Yeah, so I think if there's one lesson that I would really like to take forward, so the lesson from the past for the future is that all this work that we're doing is really standing on the shoulders of giants. So there's so much that has happened over the last, well, 10, 20, or if you want 50 years, but it's crucial that we keep looking out at what has been established already and build on what has worked or what has worked for a larger extent, and build on that rather than reinventing wheels, for example, which unfortunately we see happen. And I think the other thing, and that's also a culture thing, I think, that we always talk about data silos. But I think there are also maybe domain silos, and I think it's important, and that's part of the culture change, that we de-silo and see what we can learn from other domains. Well, I've been at meetings where indeed you can learn that a totally different domain comes with solutions for problems which you probably wouldn't have found within the domain of healthcare. So I think that as a second thing to take forward is really the collaboration, cross-cutting across domains will be, well, very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully this is also what's been happening across these 3 days of the festival, and hopefully also in some of the networking sessions that we have a chance to connect as a community. And what really has stood out to me over this time is how strong the community already is, and how there is a lot of collaboration happening. So there's a lot to work on.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, luckily there is.
Yeah. I want to close on a positive note and ask you, what's your takeaway from the past years working on Go Fair?
Well, I think what I really enjoy in the fair community is the energy that is brought into the fair community by a very varying group of people, and really being a grassroots effort. So it's really people who want to build it up and want to build it up from intrinsic motivation. Rather than from, well, whatever rules or punishments or whichever that may drive people to embark on this adventure. But I really see people, and still more people, being really touched by the principles and the benefits that they ultimately bring. And I think that's really great to see. And if we can keep the energy and the vibe going, I think that will be really great and also really helpful in moving forward.
Beautifully said, Ronald. Thank you so much for chatting with me this morning. And I think we've really been feeling a lot of that energy, that intrinsic motivation over these last days. So really excited to see what will happen next. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Wonderful to have you here. Now, I want to pick up on what Ronald has just been talking about, working across borders and moving across silos, and it's actually a great transition into what is coming now, because our existing and emerging offices have actually come together to formulate a joint statement about the future ambitions. And to present this, it's my pleasure to introduce Melissa Cragen from the US, San Diego Supercomputer Center at the University of California, San Diego, and Baron Mons, Director of the GoFair International Support and Coordination Office. Melissa, how are you this morning?
Good morning, good afternoon. Thanks very much, Emily. I'm well, thank you. It's still dark here on the East Coast of the US, but looks like it'll be a nice day.
Okay, what time is it for you right now?
It's about 6:15. Very reasonable.
Good. I hope you're a morning person. Evening,
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Well, that's lucky. And you, Baron, how are you today?
I'm fine. I'm actually feeling very proud after the interview with Ronald about what GoFair became in 3 years. But so it's sunny, even if the sun is not shining.
Beautifully put. Now I'll share my screen with you, and we have a presentation for you. Give us a moment, and then it's over to you. Perfect.
Yes, so Melissa and I agreed that I would do a few minutes first and then she takes over. The first thing I would like to say is that I've always said in the 3 years that GoFair was conceived originally as a temporary thing to kickstart the EOSC while all the political discussions were ongoing. And I think we definitely achieved that goal. We have done many steps forward. We have tooling. We have a lot of many more implementation networks than we thought. But now we have to decide, now that the EOSC association is there and EOSC will take off big time, is GoFair still needed? And we left that obviously to the executive board, because we are there as International Support and Coordination Office only to support the GoFair movement. And the conclusion was, if possible, yes, let's go on. The job is not done. But very clearly, we now depart from this idea that we were mainly starting to support the early phase of EOSC. This is really going global. Maybe Jean-Louis will say something later on the Global Open Science Cloud Initiative, where we want to bring them all together. So to be short, yes, there is still apparently a need for GoFair. So we go on, but we have to find another way, and that's what we discussed today. So we agreed that in an earlier meeting with the prospective offices in countries where there is so much GoFair activity that they feel the need to organize it, and they will present today, that we needed this vision, mission, strategy exercise. And this was what we distilled out of all the discussions. First of all, FAIR that we experienced, and Ronald said it as well, it's a journey, it's not just a destination. We can go step by step. It's not that you're either fair or you're useless. Maybe you're re-useless, but that's another story. So the story is worth every step of the way. We have had a great 3 years. We have done a lot of work together, enormous energy. We want to continue that with the vision that we need an internet and a web of fair data and services. Karel Luybe always says web of fair data and services for the EOSC. And talking about standing on the shoulders of giants, we also stand on the shoulder of the giant, which is the internet and the current web. So we'll build on that for the internet of fair data and services. And the dream of George Strawn, one of our big gurus in the last 5 years, who was instrumental in getting the internet going as we know it, says that essentially the internet brought us from one computer and from many computers and many data sets to one connected computer and many data sets. And now FAIR and what we are doing should bring us to one computer and one fair data set for all, meaning all data in the world are accessible under well-defined conditions and interoperable. Quite a dream, but let's go for that. Our mission then is, as GoFair, to contribute to that vision by making explicit fair-related implementation choices and pioneer their realization. Get things done, as René Belso said in our preparatory meeting. That's the tagline. We're not talking, we are, well, we're talking a lot as well, by the way, but we are really getting to the job and getting things done. So that is what Renee said. If I think about GoFair, why do I go to GoFair as opposed to many other things? Get things done. So with that, I think that's the dream. And I hand over to Melissa to tell us how we get there.
Thank you, Baron. Well, again, good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Thank you for the invitation. It's really great to be part of this movement and this moment as we move forward to GoFair 2.0. So as Baron pointed out, we have both standing and emerging offices in various countries and regions, and we will take on some new roles, but continue to grow in the ways that we have been. We'll continue to be community driven. We'll join together and work to collaborate across stakeholder communities, whatever those are in our particular nations or regions, and we'll work to get things done. That's sort of the effort at these office levels. We work very hard to put programs together, bring people together to develop, to go build, go train, go change. We'll share expertise and technical information and materials. And one of the most important things that we're learning from already is this idea that we can reach across our different offices to do activities like open learning by doing. That is, we can pool resources. We can work together to provide training. We can develop new models of development, of rolling out technologies and training, and we can share those models with each other and see how they'll work in our respective communities. We actively drive convergence of competences and knowledge. We do that by helping support implementation networks and also other stakeholders coming to the table to learn about FAIR. We want to avoid reinventing the wheel. It's important to leverage the coordination mechanisms like joint meetings, to open trainings to stakeholders from other regions, and we can invite observers to new models, just as I mentioned, of implementation activities to see how they might work with different groups of people and for different opportunities. Working in the country-based offices, we're going to reach full speed to organize activities and gain momentum of reach. That's important because some of the offices have not much in the way of funding support just yet, and we'll have to work hard at increasing the funding that we have to be able to extend that reach. Country offices help with some of the coordination and support activities and tasks. We might serve in various ways that would include being a contact point, for example, for communication and dissemination of FAIR information on global GoFair activities. We can have community newsletters that include, for example, actions and activities and resources being developed in other parts of the world. We'll provide coordination for the GoFair communities and also connect FAIR to RDM activities and communities across the globe. This is really important, particularly we're hearing here in the US, we've got many organizations working on research data management, and they want to know what does it mean to apply FAIR across the life cycle and range of activities for RDM. We'll help facilitate the FAIR implementation networks, and we'll seek opportunities for funding as they arise, both locally and globally, and help support GoFair governance. Just as an example, our GoFair US work has gained momentum, and there's demand for various offerings that we're able to put together here on a shoestring. We don't yet have funding outside of a very little support, a small amount of support that we get in San Diego, which is wonderful because we now have a project manager, but we continue to look for funding here in the US. GoFair US is ready to be part of the cultural push for awareness, acknowledging there is a healthy tension between FAIR being a journey and needing to design and support practical solutions that we can implement more locally. We will help provide amplification for a few implementation networks based in the US. The aim is to let them lead. They should strategically push ahead the needs of their community, and we'll help support and facilitate those activities where we can. The FAIR Festival is an example of working together, the German office having the event funds and leading it, and the Americas joining together, so GoFair US and GoFair Brazil, to do part of the programming. So these are the ways that we're working together. We look forward to being part of the global leadership going forward, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Melissa and Baron, for this very exciting and inspiring introduction into what's to come. So it's wonderful to know that this festival is not the end, but rather one step on the journey, which, as you said, is worth every step of the way. Good to also know that there's a space between being fair and being useless, and that is a destination as well as a journey. So thank you for your presentation. And this actually brings us now to the part where we will hear from each of our country officers and take our fair road trip around the world together. So the way this will work is that we'll go country by country in alphabetical order, and we'll have 5 minutes per country to present. If it's going a little longer, I'm going to jump in just so we make sure that each office has enough time towards the end and that we still have time for questions and answers. And they're going to give us now insights into their different activities. And to begin then, as I said, we'll go alphabetical order, and that means that our first country will be Austria. So I would love to invite Barbara Sanchez-Solis and Paolo Budroni to present to us. Welcome. How are you both this morning?
Thank you. Hello to everybody. I'm really enjoying this festival. Great talk so far.
Yeah, fantastic. And you, Paolo?
Well, I'm very, very fine with these initiatives. I'm not fine with the initiative. I'm fine, and I'm very happy about the initiative. It's showing how it works on a global, on a planetary size. It's really, really important, and well, I'm enthusiastic about it. Yeah?
Wonderful to hear. And I think you're not the only one here today enthusiastic. And now we'd love to learn about Austria and your work.
Yes. So, Servus aus Österreich. Hello from Austria. I'm happy to present our latest endeavors regarding FAIR. Currently, we have in Austria a very dynamic situation thanks to a number of ministry-funded projects around digitalization in the academic sector. So we're in a lucky situation that we have funding to implement technical infrastructures, but also tools like automated data management plan tools and collaborative tools for analyzing data. And we are also in the lucky situation that with this funding, we can tackle the terrain aspect by focusing on data stewardship in an institutionalized way. And however, we are aware that when implementing tools and developing, we want to bring FAIR into this work, or as a colleague of mine pointed it out yesterday, we want to bring infrastructure into research, and we want to make our researchers to be able to really exploit and take the full potential out of the new technologies. So we know we have to focus on a lot of technical issues like registries, semantic interoperability, different access models, thinking a way of download only. We need to work on built-in security, and we have to consider machine actionability in the deepest sense with all the FAIR principles. Next slide, please. Thank you. That's why we have founded, within one of the mentioned projects, a national FAIR contact point, the FAIR Office Austria. This is a brand new endeavor. We launched this office 2 weeks ago on the 9th of June, and we have given ourselves the mission: we connect stakeholders from research communities and service providers. Together, we help to advance the FAIR principles. Let me tell you a bit how we are organized. So at the moment, and as a result of the project setup, we are a consortium of 3 universities, which are the TU Wien, the TU Graz, and the University of Vienna. However, when setting up this office, scalability was in our mind right from the beginning, meaning we think outside the project in terms of duration, but also in terms of partners, because we think that FAIR is also highly relevant for some organizations outside academia. Next slide, please. So this is what we bring in at the moment. So the consortium is highly involved, actively involved in international organizations like the Research Data Alliance and also in the EOSC. And we're also actively involved in working groups in the Austrian branches of these organizations. The consortium has also founded the Carpentries Austria to really go deeper into conveyance of data science skills. Two partners of our consortiums are members in the Invenio RDM development community, because many of the repositories that are currently built are based on this software. And one of our partners, the TU Graz, is very much dedicated to Cyverse, which is data analytic tools in the life sciences. So what are our planned activities? We concentrate a lot on building FAIR enabling infrastructures. We want to get the Austrian community involved by organizing meetings, by bringing the right people together, like including developers, like including representatives of research communities, to be really aligned to the actual needs, to develop things according to their workflows. We want to facilitate involvement in the implementation networks. We want to provide trainings on FAIR and data stewardship, and thus contribute to FAIR knowledge building as a whole. So that was it from my side. Paolo, maybe you would like to add a few words?
Yes, thank you very much. I would like to say some words why we believe in FAIR. What is the spirit of our way of acting? We believe that FAIR is fostering the culture of dialogue. It's encouraging a culture of dialogue to promote institutional networking and exchanges of ideas. So we need to exchange and interact, and FAIR makes it possible. And FAIR makes also possible openness, because open communication between all communities or networks becomes reality through FAIR. Concerning the free access, all communities, all FAIR partners are then mobilized through FAIR. And we believe in it. We believe in free access through FAIR. Last two reflections. From the point of view of legal frames, we adopt and implement FAIR, and it means to foster a better regulation of ownership of rights through FAIR. The project partner ensure the sustainability of the results by regulated ownership, and this is clearer by using and adopting FAIR. And concerning transparency, through FAIR, roles and functions are then recognizable. FAIR helps to regulate relationships between all projects, all initiatives of data services, but also of infrastructures. And concerning clear and traceable information, FAIR enhances structured approaches to data and to services and to infrastructures. And the result is a clear information infrastructure. So I thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
This was the end.
I'm going to jump in because we're a little over time. I want to make sure we have time for all countries, but thank you so much, Barbara and Paulo, for this wonderful presentation about your work in Austria. Now we're going to move to Brazil and the next step of our journey around the world. And I want to invite João Moreira to speak to us about the work in Brazil.
Oh, thanks, Emily. Thanks, everybody, for the organization of this event. I'm Brazilian, but actually I'm in the Netherlands. I work in the University of Twente as an assistant professor. But I am one of the coordinators of the Go FAIR Brazil office, which is formally, it is under responsibility of the Brazilian Institute of Information in Science Technology, IBIT. But we have a joint governance among the main Brazilian institutions in this context of research data management. So we are quite used to joint coordination. This is one message that, of course, we would like to support the global coordination and to play a role there. And also to share a little bit of our experience on doing this joint coordination with different institutions. And I can highlight here institutions such as universities such as the Rio de Janeiro Federal University, Fiocruz, IBIC itself, but also Embrapa in agriculture, and the RNP. RNP is the Brazilian National Research Platform institution. And we are organized according to the 3 pillars, go change, go build, and go train. And we execute these activities within different thematic networks. What we call is kind of an implementation network, but this is really focused on the themes such as health and healthcare, which is led by Fiocruz, nursing that is growing a lot in the hospital of Unirio. Also, I need to highlight the agriculture with Embrapa. And as a national office of GoFair, we aim at supporting the implementation networks to define the implementation strategies, of course, in case where they don't exist, but also to support the evolution of these implementation strategies. Second, we aim at systematizing and disseminating guidelines to ensure the consistency with the FAIR principles among our institutions, and always maintaining a clear and transparent communication with the other GoFair national offices and the other implementation networks. I would like to highlight one thing here, that we have zero funding, okay? We don't have any funding. But that's why also we have this joint coordination, because if on one hand we don't have funding for our activities, on the other hand we have the institutions giving resources or providing actually resources, most of course human resources, but we can point out, for example, in the case of RNP and Fiocruz, that they all also provide other material resources such as IT infrastructure. Can you move for the next slide, please? And here are some of the activities that we are doing. So today in the afternoon, you will see Deborah from Embrapa presenting these 5 main elements or 5 main activities that we are doing in the Go Change. We started with this GoFair Brazil governance. So what we did, since we didn't have the resources, was to really coordinate among these institutions towards this robust coordination with very specific operating rules and roles, right? We also seek and still seeking other other initiatives to work together. And particularly one thing that we did was to establish this alignment with RDA Brazil. So by the way, the coordinators of the RDA Brazil are also participating in the coordination of the GoFair Brazil office. There are other initiatives that we are also involved, such as for Dataverse. Dataverse is one of the software for research data repository that we have in several of our institutions. I would also like to highlight that we also have the participation of the funding agencies. They are really supporting us on not in terms of funding, but in terms of the activities that we are doing, particularly the main funding agencies at the national level, so CAPES and CNPq. We have the participation of many or some universities. We really would like to grow this participation of other universities. And as you
time, please wrap up your sentence. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yes. So just to finalize here, to conclude, We have other activities going on Go Build, so building technologies and training. You probably watch these presentations yesterday and the day before about Go Build and Go Train, and we see a bright future ahead to work together in this second phase of Go Fair.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. It was really interesting. And now we're going to move straight to China. So jumping all around the world here, and from China we have Zhang-Hu Li.
Okay, 谢谢
Welcome.
大家好. Okay, thank you. Good morning. Good afternoon, everyone.
Sorry. We have...
sorry. Where's my slides?
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Thank you.
Your first one? Yes.
So,
perfect.
Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. So I'm Jian Hui from Computer Network Information Center, Chinese Academy of Sciences. So my center called CNIC. So CNIC is responsible for the research data infrastructure development and the maintenance in CAS level. And we are leading the national level, the research data platform development, and we run the CoData China office. Actually, we are trying to to build a research data community in China, and we organize some annually conference. And so as for FAIR, I think we are very pleased to join the Go FAIR family. And in the future, next 5 years, CAS will improve the research data infrastructure. Actually, every 5 years, we will improve our infrastructure. We can get funding from CAS. And we will follow the care principle and also some related specifications to implement the FAIR. So we will adopt this principles, and we will co-develop some specification and even to use in our data infrastructures. And just as Baron mentioned, so we now CoData and is try to launch a global open science cloud initiative, and we got seed funding from CAS. So the FAIR Data Network will be a key pillar of these initiatives. And in order to coordinate this initiative, we are planning to set up an international program office in CNIC we wish this IPO can coordinate the Go FAIR issues in China and even in East Asia. And we will try to organize a series of workshops and communication events to promote FAIR principles and even the specifications, and to make more data infrastructure or data repository they can adopt the FAIR principle, and to make data can be interoperability. And we because actually our center is so many technical people, so focus on the software development to to deliver to the research data management and even analysis. So we wish we can co-develop some tools for FAIR implementations, and even we can try to establish some test bed cross, the cross countries, cross disciplines. This test bed to show how to to make the FAIR principles or specifications can be adopted, what is a good practice, and so on. And so also we wish we can try to make some FAIR data skills trainings in China and even in our regional. So that is my future plan. I wish we can cooperate in the future. Thank you very much. Okay.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay. And now it's time for Denmark on our whirlwind journey around the world. As we heard, fair is a journey. And here we go with our next step on to Denmark, where we have René Bertel. Welcome.
Yeah, hi everybody.
How are you today?
Fine, thank you. So in Denmark, we are an infrastructure provider organization, in principle, not much different than the other ones around Europe. However, we are much or significantly smaller due to the fact that we have decentralized organized. So we have the universities very present in our organization. We have recently been given a task from the ministry to create a fair data strategy, which we actually consider done. All it needs to be done, all that needs now is for it to be published. We look very much forward to that. And that actually has more or less the same 3 pillars as the Go Fair concept. That's the cultural part, the infrastructure part, and the competence part. So we are working with this. We've recently been working with some M4M together with Go Fair. We're very happy with that, and we are very optimistic to developing this concept. We also look into research software. As for the infrastructure, we have our universities now in a bid situation where they're going to bid for building some national infrastructures. So we're in the beginning of that, and that is kind of like a follow-up of our implementation of our strategy. We collaborate internationally, though we are not very present, almost not present in the European Horizon 2020 or Horizon Europe projects. It has been difficult for us to engage the universities. That might change with our national fair strategy, which is going into an implementation phase where we will probably get more engaged in the Go Fair, the JOSC initiatives. So because we're small and because we are decentralized, we see a big task in this trying to get internationally connected. Next slide, please. And this international connection, if it's not within the JOSC, which seems difficult because of the big consortia structures and so on, it's very difficult to get involved in it, and it's difficult to get the outputs back to the universities. We see that this bottom-up initiative that JOSC has, that Go Fair has provided is very attractive because of the concreteness and because of the specific outcome agenda. We appreciate that very much, and we would like to be part of it. We support very much the idea of the coordination office, and we will go along with all these 3 things, which is the agenda of Go Fair. Next slide, please. So what we really think is the basis of a future collaboration, which would be really worth something for us, would be to address some of the key issues on each of these 3 elements. And I have some conclusions about these. What are really the key issues which would be great to try to overcome, which hitherto has not really been possible for the European collaboration to overcome. So starting with the first one, it's the actual raison d'etre of FAIR. So next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah. So we kind of see a push and a pull effect in this. So that the pull is the research teams that are strong and conscious and really understand what's at stake here. They pursue this FAIR concept out of own self-interest and more or less successfully. Mostly they're quite good at it, especially the big S3s and so on. And they are just looking for, getting the infrastructure out there, get the work done, and they completely are on board. The other ones, for example, are the people who are not really convinced and fear that actually they're having this pulled down over their ears and eyes because they need to make data fair for somebody else's sake. And these are like, they see like more like an altruistic kind of agenda here, and that's very much uphill. And what needs to be done is first to recognize this dualism and then actually address it differently. So the pull people, they need the infrastructure, hitherto not really there. The push people, they actually need the clear incentive structure, also not really there. Next slide, please. So, and as for the other one, with the competence, so we see like a huge ambiguity about what is actually this data stewardship. I mean, I can identify at least these 3 dimensions of complexity. So it's kind of like, which area are we in here? Are we speaking with social science, or are we speaking with hardcore technology people? It's very different. Where in the life cycle of services and infrastructure are we? Which kind of content is it about? And the last one, which is the most interesting, is actually which level are we speaking about? Is this the traditional IT support at universities? Is it the upgraded librarian, or is it something way above that? So my view or my take on this would be that the universities actually deal with this very well themselves. So they should continue to do so. But what they cannot deal with is the top complexity of it, where they could collaborate, preferably internationally. So that would be great to team up internationally and provide some maybe subject-specific data stewardship here. This is interesting. Next slide, please, the last one. So I also see here with the build part, we identify a kind of disconnect in the funding. So most of the European agenda is about the Horizon 2020, Horizon Europe funding, which is more or less, or if not completely disconnected from the national funding. The national funding simply doesn't cross the EU borders. It's the EU funding, which everybody's looking at, and they're making these projects, but not much comes out of it, I'm afraid. So if we could bottom up kind of agree on what needs to be done, and then actually put our money where our mouth is and get it built, get it done, that would be great. Because as long as the JOSC has not changed its funding model, I don't think anybody will be interested in offering services across borders for free. Cost recovery is not possible. And anyway, there are no customers there because the other countries will protect their own infrastructures and their own staff and so on. So something has to change there. We don't need to wait for that. I think we can get into alliances and agree on what needs to be built and then simply fund it and build it. That would be fantastic. And then in the meantime, wait for the JOSC people to fix the disconnect between the national and the EU funding. So those three things are, I think, major challenges which are very much worth talking about further, and where I think a community like GoFair is the right place to do this. Looking very much forward to that. And we support the coordination office, and we would like to put a proposal to our board to make it more concrete.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Renee, for this fantastic presentation. And this is our stop in Denmark, and now it's on to France, where we will hear from Laurent Clouzon and Xavier Engels. Welcome both. You're muted.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm unmuted. Sorry. Thank you, Millie. We will try to buy you some time actually because you only have one slide. So finger crossed, everything will be short. As we have been part actually of GoFair so far, they're just focusing on what has been the specificities of France and what will be the next move for us. I think it will make more sense. Basically, the peculiarity of France actually, it has been the office has been held within the Ministry for Higher Education, Research and Innovation, which is the only one actually within the ministry. And it was done because at the same department, which was the Digital Services and Infrastructure Department, we also have been hosting the French RDA Nord and the EOSC Steering Board implementation. So it made sense actually to have everything on one single place. We have been actually acting on a widespread range of action, and that is something just to outline one of the main force of GoFair so far, which has been the tremendous coordination and actually the wonderful cooperation we have with all of the, well, two already existing offices, something we definitely want to see in the future. I would stress that because it is something very important. Collaboration is definitely the key there. It was definitely easier as we were only 3 hours from each other. Things are going to change on that part. So we have been doing actually a lot of different things, which were actually to support the French participants GoFair, to promote the initiative in France, to represent national agenda within GoFair, also to support JFISCO whenever it was needed and whenever it was possible. Like, you know, the organization and funding of the last conversion symposium with the German office. That is where we are now. Now the question is what is going to be with the change in GoFair 2.0. The first one is going to be that the ministry is going to outsource the office itself. And the office will now be mandated by the ministry to support the INS. And the national coordination will be covering fair initiatives, including RDA, what we want to be open air, etc. Also EOSC, that part will still be part of the ministry. So there is going to be a difference between a clear mandated organization for GoFair and the overall things which is still going to be under the ministry's head. Actions taken by the new office, of course, are still be discussed with the mandated institution. It's something that I can't develop more because depending on who is going to take the chair will definitely mean a lot of different possibilities. The only thing we've been interested in keeping within the GoFair initiative in France was a nesting activity, something that we are stretching out and developing only lately, which are, to our point of view, something very important and something that we are already trying to do within the French ministry. So it would make sense actually, as we are already building on things there, and as myself coming from founder agencies, I think it makes sense actually to definitely have the possibility to have every part of GoFair all around the world quite aware of what are the possibilities, something that I've been missing so far. And that's all for me.
Wonderful, thank you so much. So now we will take our next step, not such a big spring, this was a jump, not such a big jump this time. We'll go to Germany. And here we have Anja Busch, also one of the forces behind this wonderful festival. Great to have you, Anja.
Yeah, hello everybody and guten Tag from Germany, and also welcome from my side. Yeah, I'm Anja. I'm working for the GoFair office at for the GoFair initiative at the ZBW. That's the Leibniz Information Center for Economics. It's located in Hamburg and in Kiel. And the ZBW is one of the locations of the International Support and Coordination Office of the GoFair initiative. And here in Germany, we are right now 3 colleagues who are currently actively involved, actively working for GoFair. That's Katharina, that's Klaus, and myself. And in Germany, the GoFair initiative was funded as a 3-year project by the Federal Ministry of Science and Research in 2017. And that happened in partnership with France and the Netherlands. And so we became part of the International Support and Coordination Office and partnered up with our colleagues in Paris and Leiden, and of course many others to support the fair shift in research data management. The initial goal was to promote the FAIR principles and their implementation nationally and internationally, and to support the EOSC at that time. And over the 3 years, it was very inspiring to work with such a vibrant community who are really eager to get the work done. And there were so many topics out there, and I personally learned a lot from all the different domains, and I'm still learning. And we started with really big challenges compared to the use cases we had. They were rather small. And now, after 3 years, we're already talking about best practices and convergence. And when I was thinking about this plenary on our 3rd day now, there comes the saying from Neil Armstrong to my mind, and I thought maybe we can just adapt it for FAIR, and saying if FAIR is a small step for researchers, and it's going to be a big step for science. And maybe we can philosophize later a little bit in the networking session about that. But back to the hard facts. In Germany, also the funding runs out now at the end of June. So in a couple of days, our capacities will be reduced. But of course, our aim is to continue the support for the GoFair initiative from the ZBW side. We are committed to the FAIR principles, and yeah, not all the work is done yet. I think the plenaries and the workshops at the FAIR Festival, they showed that very clearly. Data stewardship is a big topic. The FDO concept is generating a lot of response. And we also had a session about FAIR research software and workflows and machine learning models. And yeah, I think this is always a little underrepresented when we're talking about FAIR, then it's mostly about data. And in the future, we like to contribute in kind to a joint coordination of GoFair on a national and international level. And maybe I can just focus on 3 things. We like to continue the support for certain ends even in the past, every location was in close contact with certain inns, so they had fixed contact persons, and we like to keep that to drive the developments. And we are also happy to stay involved in the overall coordination of GoFair and of the community. And that basically means also to support the organization of events such as workshops of our implementation networks, annual community meetings, as well as related events, for example, together with Fair Data Space or under the umbrella of Data Together, like we did last year, together with CoData. And maybe one last note, our engagement and support activities, they will be very much based on the demands and the needs of the community. So, and further, we can also take over our supported communication activities among the community, but also outside of GoFair, to drive the dissemination of best practices. And like we heard over the last years, over the last days of the festival, it's really important to communicate with each other and to keep in touch. And we also heard how difficult it is to keep to stay up to date in such an agile and global community. And so I think we will, in the future, also maintain the GoFair website, create regular news items and the newsletter, drive the social media activities, and so on. And yeah, with this being said, we look forward to working with our colleagues from the other countries to support the community and make Fair happen in a joint effort.
Fantastic. Thank you, Anja. Okay, we have 2 more stops on our Global Fair road trip, and our next stop will be the Netherlands with Baron Mons. Welcome back to the stage.
Thank you. You'll see a very short slide, and I hope to be short in my presentation as well, because let me start to say after goedendag, hello, that most people may not have realized in the first phase of GoFair that there was never a Dutch office. Our office in Leiden was exclusively ISCO, International Support and Coordination. So I always joked in the first 3 years that if somebody would call me from the Netherlands with a project just for the Netherlands, we would be busy. No, don't answer the phone. That means that now that our funding for the ISCO is over, we are in the midst of starting a new office under the National Platform Open Science. By coincidence, the coordinator of that is Karel Luyben, the same as the president of the IOSC Association. So we have right now a situation where we survive on small grants and with the GoFair Foundation getting some paid work to do for the government and for certain players. But we are in a transition phase, so it's a bit difficult to say where we will exactly end. But I can guarantee that given all the involvement we had so far, there will be a Dutch GoFair office, and very likely it will be very much coordinated with our activities in CoData, which we are restarting, our link to RDA and to WDS, the Data Together organizations. I'm very glad I saw them mentioned several times. So we want to emphasize that we want to put this in the context of the larger group of data-related international organizations. It is likely to be distributed, although it's difficult to distribute anything in the Netherlands without leaving the country. It's very small, of course, but we will still have different places where people will work, and we are looking for the funding, and it looks very good, but I cannot say anything concrete on when it will start. So we are sort of really like GoFair itself in this transition phase, but extremely sure that we will find a way to continue this, because all the signs in the Netherlands are on green. 3, 4, 5 ministries are, after having been taught about FAIR, have big plans to rechange their entire systems to FAIR. So in the Netherlands, there will be a very strong basis. Also because we have a growth fund. That's the last point I wanted to say. That is typically Dutch. We want to invest ourselves out of the crisis. And 2 projects that have been already awarded. One is Health RI for 69 million, and the other one is the AI Coalition for 246 million, and many more are coming. It's a multi-billion euro fund, and all of them are completely committed to FAIR and the Go FAIR implementation choices. So it looks very bright, but with brutal Dutch honesty, right now we have no money. We are surviving on our intrinsic motivation. But as I said in the chat, that always is better than just doing stuff because there is money for it. So we are as fanatic as ever, and I'm extremely proud when I see all the presentations and the whole festival. We have achieved much more than we anticipated 3 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And your motivation is very catchy, that's for sure. So really nice to hear. We have one final stop, and that is to the US. And we'll have Christine, who can't actually join us, but has made a video. So we'll move now to her.
Hello, friends and colleagues. I didn't want to miss the opportunity to tell you about the latest happening at Go FAIR US. We have been working towards an office since our first data stewardship training in 2018 that culminated in an official office declaration last August. The interest and momentum towards FAIR guidance in the US has grown tremendously since we last met for country reports in Hamburg. We are still very much a bootstrapped operation, relying on community partners with a passion for FAIR data. This year, we have worked on an official charter and community participation guidelines that are about to go out for community review. We have established an office with a project manager, a dedicated website, and evolving communication channels. We follow the lead of Go FAIR Brazil and have organized around pillars. We have leads for each of the 3 pillars: change, train, and build, as well as a pillar we are calling ambassadors that formalizes and recognizes the need to build up data stewardship practice in the US through domain experts. Some of you have participated in our slate of webinars over the past year. We have also been working with different agencies and potential funders to spread the Go FAIR message and vision. It's our hope that we will host a symposium in 2022, the pandemic situation allowing, and that we could host you all in San Diego. Here are a few of the competencies that we can lend to the Go FAIR community at large, and these are organized by pillars and by domains. So with Go Change in particular, we can help with policy and data stewardship capacity building. With Go Build, we are especially strong with our access to e-infrastructure resources, as well as the people needed for putting pilots together. And we also bring a specialization in FAIR and AI reproducibility, along with some new tools for strategic planning that organizations can do around FAIR. And we also have considerable resources in the training department with curriculum, especially when it comes to reusable carpentry style curriculum and adapting to FAIR on a budget when funders are not requiring it and adequate budget has not been placed. What we can lend on a national and international level is also included here, especially building on the strong partnerships that we have with other country offices, such as you've seen manifest through the FAIR Festival with the late in the day session for most of you from Go FAIR Americas. So thank you so much for letting us update you and for being part of this.
Fantastic. So this brings us to the end of our whirlwind tour of the offices. Thank you so much to everybody who presented. And now I want to hand over to someone who you've met before and who you'll meet again now, who is Klaus Tochtermann from Go FAIR, who will take our questions and answers. Klaus, how are you doing on the final day of our festival?
Thank you. Very good today. Thanks a lot. Hello, everybody. Hi, Emily. Okay, I got a couple of questions in the Q&A, and I also have questions to the different country presentations just for clarification. But before I I will ask my own questions, which I have prepared. I would like to take those which come from the audience. And the first one relates to cultural change and training, which also has been identified as an important topic for the future. And the question there is, and I would like to put this question to Denmark, René, and China, because you two mentioned explicitly training and competence building. And the question is, which step, René, do you advise for cultural change and training?
Well, first of all, I think you have to recognize that this is core business for the universities. So they will be like very much interested in being on board, at least, if not controlling this completely. But what they probably have to do is recognize that there are limits to how far they can go with this. And they still are in the infant stage. Well, not everywhere, but in many places. But look to the HPC people. The HPC people, they've kind of understood that their computer centers, they have to be competent in software development, all kinds of support functions. And what they furthermore do is that they team up across the borders in Europe and focus on joint tasks in a degree which the data stewards are not even beginning to think about yet. And the computer science people also begin to team up around specific research agendas. So, for example, the material science people, the climate modeling people, they begin to have research software engineers, which are equivalent to data stewards, which are like connected to these groups and are on PhD postdoc level. I think we can learn something from them.
Okay, thank you very much. That was the perspective from Europe. And how is it in Asia? Joanna, you also mentioned capacity building, training. That was, I think you called it fair data skills training. So what's your take on this, Anna? What's your advice for cultural change and training?
Thank you. Actually, I know in China, so government funded many data infrastructure development. For even we established 20 national data centers and some repositories, and even so much funding was going to these areas. And as I know, people always talk about fair principles, but in my mind, I think maybe they don't know even how to, to adopt this fair principle, how to make it implementation for their data infrastructures. So we wish we can, firstly, we can make some trainings to all the, the data, I know the data engineering, or maybe some the developers for the data infrastructures, to make them know what will be a good practice for fair implementation, and how to make data can be readable and accessible by machine, not only by people, and how to make data can be cross-discipline integration, and so on. So this is my our idea. Actually, this is, I think it might be our the case level. We always organize the training, the data skills training for our our staffs and data staffs. I think maybe some data scientists and so on. So we wish we can engage these issues to our next 5 years the data infrastructure improvement. But I wish maybe I think this is my suggestion for our community. If we can define some curriculum and international curriculum, and even the tools or course can be shared by all the members, that will be better for us. So so this is my understanding. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jean-Louis. Thanks a lot. I would like to come to Austria, because you, in your presentation, you mentioned that the main drivers are the Technical University of Vienna, the University of Vienna, and Graz University of Technology. And then in the slides, you also mentioned the importance of the ICT competence. How does this relate to the great demand for cultural change and for training. If you have such a strong focus on IT, and you know, me having worked for 10 years at Graz University of Technology, I know these three universities are the three leading technical universities in the country. So what's your take on this? Why is the focus so much on IT, and how does it relate to the cultural change? That's the question to Austria.
Yes, I'm happy to answer. So in our case, it comes from a project setup. As I told you, we have received sufficient funding to really engage developers, to employ them for 3 years. And why it is important for us to stress their role is that they have their requirements, the developers, yeah. But we think that they need to be reviewed in regular intervals and be tested by research communities and by users. And the feedback needs to be implemented then for further development. So in our opinion, this is a constant exchange between developers and users to really make technology intuitive and to really guide users that they understand it, that they move in a secure environment also. Yeah, and that they get the most out of it also.
Okay, thank you very much.
I would
Barbara.
like to add something, if possible.
Please, Paolo.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
From another point of view, and which is related to what Barbara said and to your question. So there are two more aspects. We have chosen a quiet pace, but very constant. And we are now liaisoning with the IOSC, the supranational and domestic arena, in order to fertilize each other and to apprehend from each other in on how to adopt the FAIR principles, the FAIR movement, everything which is related to FAIR. This is the first aspect. And the second is we are also liaisoning with the e-infrastructure reflection group. It means to ask and again, to fertilize each other in order to foster this cultural dialogue with the stakeholders. And the results of these dialogues are then poured into the national experience. Thanks.
Thank you very much for the clarification on that. And maybe I go to your neighbors, to Anja in Germany, because Anja, you mentioned that the German office served the national and the international community, but at the same time, you also said, well, in a couple of days, the funding will run out. Does that also mean that in the future, your activities will only focus, for example, on national communities, or will only focus on international communities? Could you provide some clarification on that also for our attendees from Germany and also the others, because I think that's an important message where the German office will position itself in the future GoFair initiative. So Anja, what's your take?
Yeah, sure. I can give it a try. So actually, I'm not sure if we should really distinguish between national and international support, because many of our implementation networks, they are organized and working across borders. So I'm not sure if that will work out that we say we only work national. Science is nothing that's national. So I think we will end up working international, and we will, of course, take impulses from our other offices and colleagues from other offices. And then we will see to what extent we can set the priorities with the resources we have. As I said, we will very much focus on the needs of our implementation networks. And I do not want to give any preference to any in, but very active at the moment, as I know from Germany, is the Go Unite Implementation Network, that's the German chapter of the DSCC, the Data Stewardship Competence Center Implementation Network, and they also plan further activities. We have the Discovery Index, very active, and GoInter in Germany. And I'm not sure if I'm right, but I would also expect some further activities resulting from the NFDI in Germany if we talk about national activities. And because many of the INs there were very successful in the NFDI, and I think there will also result some work or support from.
Yes, thank you very much, Anja. Indeed, it is true. Yesterday, Bonnie Carroll asked the question, how do the three projects, Gaia, EOSC, and NFDI, go beyond Europe to internationalize? And I think at least one of the three still needs to clarify its strategy for how to link up with the international communities. And maybe you with the GoFair office in Germany can help out. Germany is a country which is very complex, which has a very complex science system, because we have at the state level and at the federal level different science ministries. And this brings me to the Netherlands, Barend. In our case in Germany, it's super complex to develop a strategy, a program. And you have just mentioned in your slides that the Netherlands are working on a national program, Open Science. And also Denmark, and that was completely new to me, they have a national fair data strategy. And I would like you to give advice to other countries, like my own very complex country. How did you manage to set up such a national program or initiative for open science? Germany even doesn't have a formal national open science coordination organization or a person. So we are not involved in the ENOSC initiative because we do not manage to just nominate one. And you now come up with a national program for open science. That is very embarrassing for the Germans, and maybe Barend, you can help us.
Yeah, on the one hand, we have a very small country, but you also know the famous saying, if you want 3 opinions, you just invite 2 Dutch people. So we fight anyway. And it's not easy, even in a small country. But of course, there is a strong intrinsic motivation in a small country like the Netherlands, that the moment you move, you're abroad. So you're not less than larger countries. You are inclined to say, oh, we have our own silo and everything works there. We need to collaborate internationally. So there is a very strong attitude to collaborate internationally because we are a small and a traditional trading country. So we try to get some money everywhere. But the real situation is that we see that there is this enormously fast changing data landscape, and that there are multiple organizations, and I would like to emphasize that have an international mandate, like CoData, of which I'm the president. You have GoFair, learning by doing, almost. You have the RDA, where I see really an enormous value in all these groups coming together to crack intellectual nuts, how to do things. We have the repositories in WDS, and I think this data together that came together last year is a major achievement if we use it well. So we each have our roles, and we don't fight, we work together. We advise the EOSC, we advise the Global Open Science Cloud project of Jean-Louis and others. And we have this new group coming up of the executives of the Open Science Clouds coming together at the end of the month. And they will look very carefully to those 4 data organizations for advice on how to implement interoperability. So that is what we argue in the Netherlands, that we need an office that deals with all 4 international organizations, including GoFair. And of course, we have the GoFair Foundation looking at certification stuff and so on. So the Netherlands will definitely play a role. But we know, as a tiny little country, that we can be very opinionated, but on ourselves, we are nothing. So that gives us this more open mind, but that doesn't make us easy people, as you know.
Okay, thank you very much, Barnd. And René, you have a national strategy for fair data.
Yeah.
What can we learn from you? You know, I'm just 80 kilometers away from the border, and we don't have something similar and are not even close to a national fair data strategy. So just a few sentences on how you manage.
Sure. I think it was opportunism from the ministry seeing that there was a clear connection to the EU Open Data Directive. So, and in my slides, I had this slide about the dualism of the raison d'etre for FAIR. And of course, a big part of it is that it's simply good for humanity to open up all this data, and we all will be the stronger of it. And they kind of like saw the FAIR content there. And based on that, and the fact that we also was like pushing this a little bit, they gave us this as a task to build this together with the universities. So we with the secretariat and the universities got on board, and together with the National Archives and so forth, libraries, and also these private funds, they were on board too. Yeah, we just finalized it, and we're handing it over to the ministry any day now in Danish. Maybe we will make it in English. I think we will.
Very much in the sense of the Go Fair initiative, just get things done. You know?
Well, actually, it also has the same three legs. I mean, we have a section on the change part, or we call it kind of you know, adapting the ways of work and so on as a cultural change. We have the you know, the pipes and the tubes, the infrastructure part, and we also have the competence part, and we have a financing part too.
Okay, thank you very much, René. And the last question I have goes to the mastermind of the Go Fair initiative, Barend. And then I would like to, after that question, hand over to Emily again. And the question, Barend, from the attendees is, there is Elisa, who is very interested in having Go Fair editors. She argues she's aware that at Springer Nature, they have a research data department, but she's not sure it should be company specific. She would rather prefer an intercompany professional community, which serves as a Go Fair like editing office. I think that's a very, to me at least, very innovative idea. What's your take on this?
Well, of course, from the Go Fair perspective, we are always thinking bottom up, but I can please, Anja, whoever, give the lady my email address so we can I can send the link. Otherwise, I have to look it up now. But there is a new Go Fair implementation network in the making. It's called APIN, the Academic Publishers Implementation Network. There is a publication on it by Erik Schultes and Jan Veltrop. I can send the link. If Hannah is online, she will probably put it in the chat right away. Several publishers, including Nature, by the way, have already looked at it, Heather Joseph from Spark and so on. So I think the publishers and the funders have an extremely important role to drive FAIR, also from the stick point of view, the carrot we have already discussed, to simply make it mandatory that if you publish a paper, that your major conclusions are also in machine readable format, and that your data are published as fair format with fair metadata. That's all in the publication that you will get soon. I cannot wait until this becomes a Go Fair implementation network with publishers that are committed to fair data publishing. And my statement is always, publish your data with a supplementary paper, not the other way around.
Okay,
Still need a supplementary paper. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Barend, and thank you to Elisa for this important question. I think we are coming to an end of this session. I would like to thank you again, all the presenters and the panelists, also during the past like 20-25 minutes. And now I would like to hand over to Emily, right?
Yes, thank you, Klaus. And again, thank you from my side as well for this has been a fantastic final plenary session of our FAIR Festival, at least for this year. But the day is not yet over, so I want to let you know what's coming up next. Next, we will have our deep dive collaborative workshop session on FAIR practices. Today's topics are towards FAIR pilots and distributed services, with 3 subtopics: fair pilot on nanofabrication, a fair pilot on biodiversity, and building fair distributed services and products. And the second topic will be the relationship of fair data objects and metadata in the fair ecosystem, questions and considerations from the DDI-CDI perspective. Now that will be happening at 3:30 p.m. till 5 p.m. Central European time. But in case you're excited and you can't wait till then, we are going to have, as we had yesterday, a networking session now directly after this session. And this is a chance for you to connect to the speakers, connect to other colleagues. And today's topic is on fair fiction time. So thinking at the edge of fair knowledge and beyond, the place for woulda, coulda, and shoulda. So if you want to explore that or any of the topics that you've been thinking about over the last couple of days, we would love to see you there. And there's a separate place, which is Spatial Chat. If you go there, I will be there to greet you and to explain to you how it works. So we would love to see you at the networking session or at some of our sessions later on today. And otherwise, we wish you a wonderful rest of your day and thank you for being with us.